Hey everybody, my name is Al Nicoletti. Welcome to the Al Nicoletti Show, where I bring on real estate super investors, rising rock stars, movers and shakers, and leaders of their clubs in their community that educate, entertain, and inspire all things Florida real estate on how you can take your company to the next level. On my show today, I have the wonderful, the amazing, the inspiring speaker, leader, and realtor, Kim Knapp in Northeast Florida. She is just a bright personality. She's always on the go. Every convention and every trade show we have, she's on stage, inspiring, talking to realtors about what they have to know, what they should know. And she is just so full of life. She is on the show going to talk about providing consumers good information on different things that they go through on their home. Also talk about realtors opening up a business and why it's important to be skilled at listings and why learners are leading. And it's very important to listen to things too. But she's going to also talk about some things in probate and how RPAC is really important for your business and for other consumers that are out there in the real world dealing with private property issues. So without further ado, I welcome the wonderful Kim Knapp. Welcome to the show.
Wow, that was a grand, awesome, amazing opening and introduction. I hope I can live up to it.
You will. We're going to have so much fun talking about things on the show because, like, as I told you backstage, I've been doing these more and more. And the more I do these, the more I'm just like, we just are going to dive in. It's a great conversation to get into a lot of things. And you are a big figure in the Northeast Florida realtor market. Brokers know who you are. You're on the board of the Florida Realtors. You're just constantly on the go being a leader in the community. But for those that don't know who Kim Knapp is, besides the introduction and me telling everybody, tell everybody who is Kim Knapp and how did you get into this real estate world that you are in now, that you are heavily involved in?
Kim Knapp is a girl that was raised in a very small town in the Midwest. And at 18, and there's 25,000 people there, got out and I took this long road that I will not explain the details of that took me through Florida to upstate New York. And where I met my husband of almost 30 years, we're almost there. And when it came time for him to retire from General Motors, because I had taken that brief little track through Florida, I'd always wanted to come back, and my kids were around 12 and 7, which means that they weren't going to be overly angry about being displaced. They weren't teenagers yet. And so we moved, it was 20 years ago, we moved to Northeast Florida. And within just a couple months, I said, I think I want to get into real estate, which is really funny because I was a horrible seller in New York. I was the worst seller. I was a textbook bad seller as far as my expectations. And but I had a great agent experience moving here. And I said, I think I want to do this. And before I was even licensed, I interviewed real estate agents. And I wanted to know, what do you do? What do you like? What do you don't like? Where do you make your money? I interviewed site agents, and then I started interviewing brokers. And some brokers wouldn't talk to me because I didn't have my license yet. But I was trying to have a plan before I started, not have a plan, And so I ended up signing on at the time with with Vanguard. And now it's Coldwell Banker Vanguard, but I've been here 20 years. And I had some good mentors along the way, which I'm very thankful for. And so fast forward all of that, I've sold almost $500 million in real estate. I'm your 2019 MLS president. I'm a CRS instructor, Florida Realtor instructor. And I like serving the real estate community. I love real estate people who are really doing this like for real, not posers, but people who are doing this for real. You are good people, because if you're only in this for the money, and you can make a lot of money doing this if you do it right, but if you're only in it for the money, you'll never make it because the people will get in the way. And so when you're in this business and you're good at it, you have a good heart, you do the right thing, and you take care of people. And so I love real estate people.
So I never was thinking about real estate when I was in law school, before law school, anything like that. I think I think I heard about it. It sounded interesting, but I was more worried about music at the time, but then found out that music wasn't going to do anything. And so then came the bar exam, and I think I started learning more about the real estate world, and then I dived in probate. So my track about how I got in real estate is just different, but um, for those that are just starting that haven't even thought about it before, when you first got into it, what advice would you give those realtors that either are just taking their licensing exam, are just starting out trying to get those listings, get their buyers lists together? Because it's a whole different world. I mean, once you start with the brokerage, it's a grind. Just like at a law firm, it's a grind to get the business, to get on the phone, start calling people, start talking to people. It's hard. I'm sure you've had that experience on one of your first experiences, I'm sure. But how do you help realtors that are just starting out get that to that next level?
So the first thing I would say, there's a quote that I love, that a man will find an excuse or he will find a way. So you, first of all, it's all about your mindset going into it. The second thing I'm going to say is that you need to do things afraid. So you don't like calling people, you don't like, having a for sale by owner, slam the door in your face, get over it. It's not personal. So when it's not like I ever had a for sale by owner say like, go away. And they're like, I hate Kim Knapp. She's a horrible human. It was just, the best 4-letter word in real estate is next. Who's next? So when you get in, you need to be under a brokerage that you're going to be learning, that you're going to be trained. You need to find a mentor. You need to show up at the office all the time. And in the beginning, you can't be much of a gatherer when you start. A gatherer is somebody that's really been, works their sphere of influence or has a farm area. You should do those things, but those things don't happen overnight. Those things, it's like a field and a farm. It takes time, but you have to be a hunter, and you can't be afraid to hunt. And hunting is going out. You need to get a for sale by owner plan. You need to get an expired plan. You need to ask other agents to let you do their open houses. You may not be good at conversion in the beginning. You have to practice your conversion skills. I'll get it better next time. But this is an all-in submersive kind of a thing. And you have to be open to learning and implementing.
Right. Because while it may be a job at first, it becomes a career. And if you stick with it and you're consistent, you're persistent, you follow up with people, you follow up with the listing, you can really take it to another level. And so one of the things you did want to talk about, and it's funny, we're kind of transitioning to there, is why it's important to be skilled at listings. So when you're first coming out, how important is all of the education to understanding the contracts, to understanding the inspections, to understanding all of the nuances that come with, it's not just connecting with the seller, it's knowing all of this back stuff. Like, they don't teach a title when you first start. They don't teach you what all of those things are. Like, how do realtors, I know NEFAR has all the classes, right? That's a huge benefit of the Northeast Florida market, no doubt. I mean, I've walked into some of those classes in the morning at 9 a.m. or 12, and there was Jeff Marks, there's Patty Ketchum. I mean, they're amazing. I mean, thank goodness there's these courses, but how do they get better at those skilled listings and understanding contracts and title besides diving in? Like, what are those tips that you would give them?
Well, first of all, I'm just going to say, when you go to real estate school, the only thing you learned is how not to go to jail, right? So you learn that. The person who does my $20 pedicure went to school for months. All right. You go to school for 1 week. Now you have a license and you're like, oh my gosh, now I need to learn contracts. And yes, you do need to learn and actually know the contract. So, and the listing agreements, and you need to learn how to do self-promotion, how to overcome objections, how to negotiate, how to help people price. And that's going to come 2 ways. That's going to come by going after that learning. And then it's going to become by practicing and doing it. Whether you practice role play with somebody, yes, nobody looks forward to doing that. No one says, oh my God, I'm so excited, it's role play day, right? Nobody says that, but doing that role playing is going to be important. And that's where you go out and actually, do those appointments and practice, right? But you have to go after that education. You have to know, you don't come out of real estate school knowing even what your value proposition is as a real estate agent. So I'll give you all something for free right now as an example. Okay. You're on a listing appointment and somebody says that they're going to list the house, and we'll use bananas. They're going to list the house for X bananas, right? And they really like you. They got to get as much as they can out of this house, and they want to know if you'll do it for the same amount of bananas. This is the free thing. All right. What's going to determine the seller's net is not the number of bananas that's being charged. Okay. What's going to determine the seller's net is 5 things. And that's one. The first one is how well is the realtor that you hire going to help you properly prepare your home for sale in order to get the best price? Number 2, how skilled is that agent in helping sellers strategically position their homes on the market in order to get the best price and attract the right buyers, right? Number 3, are they skilled at overcoming objections in order to get someone to the table? Are they able to negotiate successfully so that you can get the best price and terms? And you can do all of those things, but we all know it's not over till it's over, because you get in bed with 12 or 14 people every time you put a transaction together, all these different people with all these different baggage and all this emotion and all this agenda. But you have to be a skilled facilitator to bring it all together, have the cool head, and get to the end where you actually close. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what's going to actually determine your net is the person that you hire that you're confident in, that can do those 5 things for you. So I just shared something completely free, but you need to learn how to do those things. And that's not going to come without taking education. Look at CRS education. There's other designations. There's being a listing specialist. There's buyer specialist, but seek and chase after learning.
Yeah, because you could have all those certifications and specialties, but that still doesn't mean you have the skill set,
Oh, yes,
right?
That's right. Oh, so that's yes. So the opposite is
That's like
having
lawyers
a bunch of
with
alphabet soup behind your name doesn't mean, right? If you're not implementing and doing it.
But that's like lawyers with an LLM in like tax or something, right? That doesn't mean that they exactly know everything in tax. Just because you have all of these PhD and all of these certifications doesn't mean you know exactly what happens.
Well, but here's what sets. So I'm a CRS instructor, which is something I'm very, very proud of. I waited 10 years getting down that door. I was one of 2 people they hired in 10 years, had hired no one in 10 years. And so anyway, I love my CRS instruction. And that's the one where CRS is different. You can't just go take a class and be a CRS. You have to be in the business so many years. You have to have sold so many millions worth of real estate and take their classes. So the people who invest in doing that are serious, right? It's not like I went and I never had to sell a single house, but I added some letters, right? So that's one of the things I love about, and the instructors are awesome. The education is awesome, practical and effective.
That's unique. I didn't ever hear about that before. That's a next level kind of certification, right? You have to even qualify to get that certification. That's a lot. That means you're really up there with doing things, Kim.
But don't put that off, guys. Don't go like, well, I haven't sold any millions. I'm going to do all these things wrong and spend all this money learning lessons. You can still take the education, and that education will help you get to the millions that you need to, and then you can get your designation.
So, a lot of what we were talking about backstage and what you kind of just mentioned makes me think that is the realtor world get a little overwhelming about what options are out there? Because it sounds that way when it's like, don't give up, don't think that you can't do it. There's a lot of competition out there. What is that mindset that the realtors, that strong mentality mindset they have to keep moving forward consistent wise? Because there's so many, right? I don't remember what the number was. Was it 10,000 realtors just in Northeast Florida? And then you have a group, a handful, like the Christina Welches, the CC Underwoods, that are just the power hitters, Melissa Ricks, and all of them now that are out there. What is that mentality that I keep hearing you mention, that this is what makes you a strong leader on stage at REBar, maybe at the Northeast Florida Builder trade show, or the Florida Realtor thing? I can't wait to see you up there one day again. But what is that mindset that you have always for the realtors?
Well, I'd say, first of all, you have to be a self-starter. Nobody makes you show up. Nobody's going to make you show up. It's like when you send your kids off to college and they were home and they had to go to school, and then you send them and they went away. Nobody's making them show up, right? So the first of all is that you have to just make a commitment to show up. Secondly, it's your self-talk. We all have self-talk going on all the time. And what is that self-talk telling you? And if you're going to let that self-talk say, this is never going to work. So Bar Camp is something that I have this fabulous group of people that we work on. And I surround myself with people who aren't married to their ideas, who are open to, working together and coming up with the best thing. But who I do not want to be around is people say, that'll never work. You can't do that. No, talk to me how we can do it. Right? So if you have a negative mindset, if you have bad self-talk, you'll keep yourself stuck and you won't go to the next level. The next thing, if you really want to take your business to the next level, is you got to get over yourself and give up control. If you want to be the marketing person and you want to be the transaction coordinator and you want to be the post-close person and you want to be the realtor person, when you're getting ready to take your business from 5-6 million and you want to go to 8, 10, 15 million, you have got to get over yourself and give up control. You have got to be able to delegate and give people permission to make mistakes, because once you hire people, they will make mistakes. And you don't want to be like a parent who's a helicopter over their child, who never lets them make a mistake. You've got it. It's going to happen. And I get it reflects you. Just get over it. If you want to grow your business, you're going to have to do that.
So just everybody getting out of their own way, really. I've heard that before. There was Ron LeGrand that I had on before. He tells everybody to get out of their own way and just do what you got to do. And you talked about a great point, is overcoming objections. When you refer to overcoming objections, is it overcoming the objection of a seller saying no, or is it a contract offer? Like in the terms of overcoming objections, what are you referring to? Because if anybody's seen it, you have, with the volume and listings that you've had, and I'm sure you've had to come up with great negotiation phrases and tips. And you probably have if not A, then B, if not B, then C, then D. You have a game plan. So what is that?
Well, I think, humans are not that complicated. Humans really are not that complicated. And I joke sometimes when I'm teaching classes about listings, as I said, it's almost as if the sellers went to seller school and they got trained, because they all say the same thing. And so once you've done this enough and you learn so I'll give you a common objection. A common objection is, you've got a house, you want to list it, you want them to prep it, and the carpet is bumpy and it's icky. Right. And you say, maybe, actually, I wouldn't say it this way. I say, let me ask you a question. Is the goal to get the best price? Because I want to establish if we're on the same page or not. Maybe it's not. But if it is, I want them to say that. I want to hear them say that. So I just want to understand, is the goal to get the best price? Well, yeah, of course. Okay. If that's the case, if it meant that you would get a better price, would you be okay with replacing the carpet? And I've heard this 1,000 times. Well, yeah, sure. Yeah. But you know what? If I replace the carpet, I'm going to replace it with something they don't want. Right? Why don't we just give them a credit? I've heard that 1,000 times. And I'll say, here, you know what? It seems like, and I always, you want to acknowledge people. And I say, you know what? It would seem like that would make perfect sense. Offer a credit, let them get what they want. I go, but here's the problem with that and how it plays out in real life and real estate. If a buyer comes into your house, first of all, it's kind of a turnoff because it just doesn't look as nice. Okay, that's number one. Number two, they're going to look around and say, this has to be replaced. What do I want to replace it with? I think I want hardwood. And so they want a hardwood price. You were trying to give them a carpet price. Now, if you replace the carpet, it makes the house look cleaner and newer and fresher. And maybe they didn't love carpet, but they'll live with it because they don't have to do it right now. But if they have to do it right now, they're going to charge you for what they want, which is probably not going to be carpet. So in my experience, and I believe that's one of the reasons you have me here, in order to get the best price, again, I just want to ask, would you be comfortable? Would you be good with replacing the carpet? Just build or grade. We don't make sellers responsible for what the conversation, right?
Right. Yeah. You have to make it's a walking a fine line, because you come in with your mindset and then they have their mindset, and
Mhm.
everything's got to line up. And of course, there's going to be rifts and friction between you and the seller, and the way they want it, because people are stuck in their own ways with certain things, right? Like the older they
Mhm.
get, the more stuck they are,
Mhm.
and the younger they are, the more they're willing to mold. But if you can learn that, what I'm gathering from you is, if you can learn that now, if you can learn that concept of the differences, like submerge yourself as much as you can now to see it, then when you're in 10 years, when you're in 15 years, you're gonna have a greater idea and mindset of how to handle those kinds of situations, like you're explaining. And this is
Well,
this
and they repeat themselves over and over and over again. It could be, well, I don't want to, I use a triangle, and circle the top of the triangle. And they're like, well, I don't want to do any repairs. I don't want to clean up. I don't want to, whatever. I'll say, okay, well, the triangle is the entire buying population, right? And these people down here in the belly of the triangle, the big part of the triangle, these people pay retail. So I just want to understand that who we're focusing on are people who are okay with a fixer upper, who are okay, like this smaller group of people. And I just want to make sure that you understand that that puts us in that zone of targeting those people. Let them talk and say, okay, my only concern with that is those aren't the retail people. Those people are looking for a deal. So I just want to make sure we're on the same page of how that's going to play out. And that's the truth, right? If
right.
you're trying to be a fixer upper, then your target audience is people who are looking for a deal.
And it's funny because I'm looking at some of the questions I'm planning to ask you, and there's also some that I haven't even asked some people yet, because it may not apply to what they do, but this one kind of does. Yesterday I had a guest on, Carrie Like, wonderful, full of life. She's in Orlando. She does a lot of investing. She's been doing it for about 10 years. And one of the things she was talking about was how in our role every day, we kind of play what we are in our career, and then almost like psychologists, or
Mm-hmm.
trying to balance those things. And I think the same thing can be said about what we do in law. We're not just the lawyer, but we're trying to balance temperaments and emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Same things for
Mm-hmm.
realtors, because
Oh yeah.
it may be a divorce that's going on. It may just be husband and wife that are on the verge of it and they just don't get along, or they're just stuck in their ways. And so where I'm going with that with you is, a lot of what we do on a daily basis is learning people skills, because it isn't just about the contract and the inspection and the title thing, which we'll cover, and all the other
Mm-hmm.
nuances, but it's people skills. And I think in school, they don't teach that at all. They don't say, this is how you are with this person, this is how you are with this person, this is how you deal with this personality. They don't
Mm-hmm.
even have that in a psychology
Mm-hmm.
book about, okay, these are the characteristics and this is how you respond. So
Mm-hmm.
when you've been doing it for so many years, and you're not just dealing with people, you're dealing with sellers that are stuck in their minds and their ways, um how have you developed those skills of dealing with attitudes and personalities, behaviors, and just trying to, I don't know, like what are those tips for those realtors that don't know that side of it yet? Because when they dive into it, I'm sure just like lawyers, the first thing they're thinking is, when are we going to trial? When are we going to the hearing before the judge? But what they don't teach you in law school is how, hold on a second, you're going to be on the phone with Susie and Johnny and Sally. I mean, you're going to be talking to these people, not just contracts and closing. There's a so there's such another world to it than what people think when they're diving in. Or like, I interviewed somebody yesterday for an assistant job, and she's thinking about being in real estate and stuff, and I'm like, well, definitely get your bearings together with being shadowing somebody, because there's a whole other side to the people world.
Mm-hmm.
What is your take on all of what I said? Because it's definitely 50% of what we do.
So I had to take notes because that was a good question with a lot of good information. The first thing I would say is, as realtors, you need to understand that when you get invited into a real estate transaction, whether it's a buyer or a seller, that there is another big stressor, good or bad, but stressor going on in their lives. They are getting married, they're getting divorced, they're having children, the last one moved out. They're getting older, they can't do it anymore. They got the biggest promotion of their life, they lost their job. Whatever it is, there's a trigger that causes people to move. People don't have a lot of experience selling something this big. This is why they have you. But there's another, so you have this financial thing on top of whatever life thing is going on. So people are not always rational. And realtors become some of the worst buyers and sellers, which just proves, even though they have the information, they get caught up in it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that, you need to be self-aware as a person of what kind of personality you have and what your strengths and weaknesses are. For example, I am a high D personality. You want to come tell me something? Carrie would come in, my niece, working together for like 16 years, and she wants to tell me about a problem to get an answer. And she starts with, so I got this buyer, I think it was a Zillow, no, maybe it was a sign. At this point, I'm going, what does this have to do with anything? I want to get to the point. But she likes to tell the journey. I'm thinking she's trying to determine where the lead came from. And I'm so far from like, they found a house under contract. What's the problem? Right. But I have to be aware to know, especially with customers, some people, it's important to them to tell the journey because they feel like they're being heard. If you have a seller that doesn't want to hear the journey, you have to be able to identify that and get to the point. So taking training on DISC or, whatever on different personalities is really important. One, so you can be self-aware of yourself, and two, so you can begin to identify that and know how to best be effective in communicating with people. Sometimes agents will misinterpret, there's personality that really needs lots of details. This is my husband. He likes the details. He asks questions, and he will ask me the question this way, and then he'll ask it this way, and then he'll come at me from behind. And I am thinking, early on in our relationship, did you not believe what I said? Are you questioning me? No, it had nothing to do with that. It was for him. And so as agents, we'll be like, why are they questioning me? They don't believe. Blah, blah. No, you need to get over yourself for a hot second and understand they communicate differently. And you need to help them because they need that comfort in knowing that they truly understand the details and that you understand the details. So that's just an example. So having that personality education, being self-aware of yourself. Two other things, being an active listener, like listening to what people are saying, and be quiet for God's sake. We ask a question and there's 2 seconds of silence and then we start yakking again. How do you guys feel about that? And if you have to channel this in your mind every time you do something like that, Clint Eastwood, just be quiet. Some people, I'll use my husband as an example. He will tell me, bada, 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 I already know how I feel about bada, bada, bada. Whatever he said, I can tell him, da, 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 what do you think? And he goes, you just said it. Like, I don't think anything yet. Like, give me a minute. So we expect that if we say something, people are just going to have this instant response. Sometimes they need to process for a second. And you, by talking, interrupt that space that they were about to come out and say something important. So learn to be quiet. So that's my thoughts on my experience with that.
That's great. I mean, that's great advice for everybody out there. Being an active listener. So, speaking about that is, they can say and parrot the word, be an active listener, but everyone will shake their head and go, yeah, of course, but they don't know how to, it actually applies in life, actually listening so that you go to the next point they're trying to make. So you understand what they're saying and maybe you're open-minded, right? So it almost is an open-minded listening. So then you can follow, oh, okay, I know where you're going with that. A big problem in client world, in seller world, buyer world is the listening and the communicating. And that's just a whole thing on its own. I'm sure you've seen when there's a lack of communication and a lack of expectations up front, explaining everything that they should know, have to know up front, it creates chaos later. It creates friction. It's not what we thought. It's not what we wanted. And then and then eventually goes to a closing table, but it was like, how was the experience? It was, it's not what and so the goal is to get those expectations and communications up front. And there's so many important parts about that, Kim. I mean, that's amazing stuff. What I probably would ask now that you get past that seller or that skill set is, what have you found a success in really building trust with a seller on a deal and getting that listing agreement, right? So realtors really yearn for, I want to get that listing. Like, I can get that listing for the house, but we forget there's actually people in the door. Like, how are you establishing that trust with them to say, I can do this, I'm going to handle it, I'm going to, and not just in the beginning, but continually in it, right? Because first impressions are everything, but continuity is something that everybody forgets, is follow through and finishing. So your advice to people, and I've had a response before of, Al, it's not really about building trust with the seller. It's about, there's a problem, there's a solution, and we got to come up with a creative way to do it. But I find that's not so much with, I find that probably more with distressed properties, because those are crazier deals that are going on and they just need a cash deal, whatever. But with your world, you're dealing more with, like, these are people that have the house, they want to sell it, and they want to sell it to a buyer that wants to buy it. So there's a different dynamic moving on. So how does Kim, what are those secret sauce Kim tips about establishing that trust?
Well, first of all, I think establishing or earning trust is hugely important, hugely important. And we need to recognize when we walk in the door, we haven't done that yet. So you can't assume that. First of all, show up on time when you say you're going to show up. That's just a small thing on the upfront, but you got to do what you say you're going to do. I learned this from Sharon Alter, as an agent in my office years ago, and I thought, that's good. And guys, R&D, rip off and duplicate. That's what we're all doing here, and that's why you're probably listening right now. We learn and then we implement. But she shared this with me, and she said, I asked him, on a scale of 1 to 10, how honest would you like me to be with you? And let them answer. And agents tend not to be honest with sellers because they want to win the listing. Guys, what you need to do is improve your skills and telling people the truth. Because if you say, oh, I'm not going to say anything about the smoke smell and the dog smell and, the black family room, and with the black lights or whatever craziness is going on, is being able to get to the heart of the conversation with people. And if and I use this example with customers. If you went to the doctor because something was wrong and you were coming back for your follow-up visit, and the doctor grabbed the file off the door and looked at it and said, holy moly. And he walked in and they're like, the doctor doesn't want you to be mad at him because of your diagnosis. He feels bad. So he's not going to tell you. He's going to go in and not tell you. And, so you would want the doctor to tell you the truth. And that's why you have me here as a real estate professional. I want to help you get what you want and the time frame that you want. And the best way I can do that is being honest with you. And so what happens is agents aren't honest and they win the listing. And now they get this. You said I could sell my house for this. You never told me I needed to do that. If you're going to tell me as a real estate professional, I'm going to let the feedback tell them because I didn't want to tell them. They're going to say, why didn't you say this? You're the real estate professional. Why didn't you tell me this? So getting that skill set together to find ways to be able to tell people, say smoking, for example, say, I have no problem with smoking. If this is your home, you should be able to do whatever you want in it. This is your home. But my question is in order to get the best price, if that meant that maybe you brought an ozonator in here for a couple of days and then you just started only smoking outside, would that be something you'd be willing to do? You don't say, oh my gosh, you know how hard this house is going to be? It smells like smoke. Like that's not an effective tool, but can you be honest with people in a way that helps them? And that's what we need to do. So you earn trust by doing those kind of things. And then when you get to harder conversations, because those are the easy conversations, guys, the harder conversations come when you're, somebody says they have an ugly baby and is asking for all kind of repairs, or you need an extension because, the loan's not ready, or the house didn't appraise. And, all those are hard. Those are much harder discussions than, can you smoke outside?
And we'll talk about those harder discussions. I guess that'll end up being the biggest deal killer issues, right? So, and if anybody did notice, Kim has a unique way of speaking. She has a way of, she gets your attention, and I'm like, what's the next thing she's gonna say? So I've noticed that about you, Kim. I was like, wait a second, am I answering, or this is like a hypothetical? So very, very important tips for realtors out there that have to be able to mold to these different situations. They have to be able to see what's happening and learn from these, and learning comes with doing. But you said something also important in there is, so you build that trust, and you can't anticipate everything. I think if you, in the world of life, you do your best to anticipate a lot of things. I think you know where I'm going with this. Like, so you build the trust, you get the contract, then all of a sudden comes like the inspection, the this, the that, and then things go a little awry. Like, how do you temperament those moments in the deal? Because that's where it could get a little sticky with people. They said, you didn't tell me this, or you didn't tell me that, or I didn't know this, or how did this happen? And of course, let's talk about title, because that is probably not discussed with the seller and the buyer up front. I mean, the word title company only occurs when, oh, there's a contract, we got to bring it to title. Wait, who's title? What's title? So now it's like a whole other element. I thought you said we could get this thing done in 30 days or less. And then you find out title takes about 90 days because the lender is a hard money lender. It takes about forever to approve, or the banks are closed, or COVID hits, and it's just chaos about approval. So in those moments, what's your best advice to realtors to handle those situations? Because I can think of a handful of times I've personally seen where the realtor is all excited, gets the listing, gets it under contract, but the seller didn't know about these little things like title. What are your thoughts?
Okay, so I took notes on all this, and I'm gonna go backwards to come forwards. First of all, one of the important things I left out in the beginning about earning trust is having a plan. You need to be organized and have a plan. When you go in and you're giving to that seller, look at, I've got the seller's disclosure that needs to be filled out. I need the mortgage information. I need the HOA signed. I need utility information, high, low, average. I want everything that I could possibly need to make your house easy to buy. We've got to organize. We've got a checklist. Have you refinanced in the last 3 years? Did you get title insurance? Could we get a reissue credit? Do you have a survey? You need a list. And if you don't have one, I mean, take a class, talk to your peers, but you need to have a very specific plan when you come in. One of the things you mentioned was about inspections. I encourage all my sellers to have a pre-inspection, and I have them sign something that says they chose or declined to do it. Right? I'm like, it's in your best interest. You're not going to find every small thing, but you'll find the big rocks. And then you can make a decision how you want to handle that before you position your home on the market and before you're under contract with a buyer who wants it. Right? So there's that thing. You talked about this before, and that's setting expectations in advance. Don't act like if you list with me, everything is awesome, because it's not going to work out that way. You can't control everybody else. So you can do the best job and you can be awesome at what you do, but you can't make other people awesome. Right? So you have to set realistic expectations about what things look like. The next thing, you don't apologize for things you didn't do. So if you do something wrong, you need to eat crow, suck it up, and apologize. Okay? But if the house doesn't appraise, you don't call them and say, I'm really sorry, but your house didn't appraise, because you just took ownership for it. You need to say, I have some unfortunate news. The house didn't appraise. Okay? That's a very different conversation. And so agents get caught up and then take ownership for all these things that happen. You need to deliver information, but you don't apologize for what you didn't do. You always apologize for what you did. Does that make sense? And so there's that part. And as far as, title, I mean, it depends on who you're dealing with. I mean, you've got a flip, do you have someone who's got a ladybird title on it? Do you have kids that are involved? I mean, there's things that are involved. You need to have a relationship with somebody that you can get a quick search on it if you need to kind of project if there's going to be, any problems. I know you're going to talk about probate later, but those kind of things, start to come up. If you, just like we want people to see us as the family doctor, I want to be the realtor family doctor that they call when they have a problem, right? That they have a real estate professional. Well, as a real estate professional, I need to have an attorney that I trust, that I can deal with. I need to have a lender that I trust. I need to have a CPA that I trust. I need to count on other professionals, right, that have information to be able to help me in my business or my finances or whatever I'm doing. You can't know everything. So those partnerships are hugely important to your success.
Yeah, they don't teach you about title, and probably, I don't know, you tell me if they all of a sudden are like, oh, we have a class on title exactly in the realtor world. They don't explain those things, and sellers don't know what they are. I even get the question because I do the probates, but I don't do the title. Like, I don't do title. So all of a sudden when the clients or the heirs are calling me, I'm like, hold on, there's another department for that. And there has to be a lot of that explanation about what title is and what's involved and what are the pitfalls, what are the problems that come with it, back taxes, mortgage foreclosure, short sale situations. There's so many different things that fall into that realm of crazy things that happen in real estate. And I guess that transitions me to ask you, Kim, in your world, what are, and if probate's the answer, I don't think it was, because we talked backstage about it, but it's gonna be a great question. What is a biggest deal killer you come across or realtors come across, whether it's at the closing table, whether it's getting the contract, the appraisal, the inspection, the lender? What is the biggest deal killer you see?
The biggest deal killer, there's really a couple. And one is the lender. The lender is hugely important. I had a deal a couple of years ago where I was dealing with the Utah something or other blah blah credit union. I'm like, why is the credit union in Utah doing this? And it didn't close, and we ended up switching to a local lender. But so here's something I tell my customers. I'm like, oh, let me ask you. You mentioned you got pre-approved. Are you working with a local reputable lender? Or if not, would it help you if I gave you, put you in contact with one? Don't give them the information. Can I put you in contact with a local reputable lender? All your words matter. What do you mean local reputable? Well, it's interesting, but when you have a lender who doesn't know our market, they may not understand customary closing costs. Their disclosures to you may be incorrect. Maybe they don't understand doing title in Florida. Maybe they don't understand CDDs and HOAs, homestead exemption, how all of that will affect your payment. Now, I just dropped a lot out there, but what I just told them is there's a lot they don't know and how that might affect them, right? And that's why I'm going to go back to knowledge and learning is power. The more you know, the more powerful you are. And so the problem is people don't go to title classes because they're like, no, I want to go to the staging class because that's sexier than the title class, And they'll say, oh, Kim, we need more classes on professionalism. I'm like, yeah. They'll be storming the gates. All the people that you want to come to that class, that you're telling me we need to have that class. All the unprofessional people are going to go, geez, that's awesome. I really need some of that. I'm going to go to that class, right? They don't go. So that's the problem with the people who do go, who say, oh, they're doing a class on riparian rights, and I want to get into waterfront property and understand what those riparian rights look like. You want to be that person, you got to go after that knowledge. And so that was free and off the answer. The question you had asked about deal killers. So I think having a local reputable lender that cares if they deliver on what they say, because their name is known in the real estate community in this really small, big city, right? So there's that. The second thing is honest to God, realtor incompetence. Realtor incompetence, because you didn't set expectations. You didn't make sure that people understood the timelines. Don't sit there and tell me they're grown and they signed the contract. It's their problem. What do they need you for? What do they need you for? If you're not going to make sure they made their application within 5 days and following up to make sure the loan got approved in 30 days and making sure you send a request for repairs before the end of the inspection period and not after, right? All these things. Are you a listing agent? Do you show up to the appraisal? Not so you can tell the appraiser how to do his job, because he totally doesn't want you to do that, but to show up to build a relationship, providing the survey. They do like the survey. And because if someone likes you, they might just spend a little bit more time than if they're like, you're a jerk or you don't care at all, right? So there's all these things the realtor can do. Are you keeping up with the lender, listing agent during the process? Where are we at? Has the appraisal been ordered? How are we set on loan approval? You can't set this on autopilot. If you're going to do that, who needs you? Right. So that would be number 2, realtor incompetence. Am I allowed to say that? I might be getting in trouble. I don't know.
You know what? It was said. So that's that. But it's important to know that, right? That's important to know, is that it's a culmination of a couple things that you've mentioned where it's the lenders. Because I've heard a lot of people talk about how that holds up deals, the approvals, the submitting, and the juggling act that realtors actually play when it comes to you have to manage this one and this one and this one. And they probably don't even know that when diving in. Again, they probably think, oh, I'm going to list this house. Great. I'm under contract, moving on to the next one. And that's where it's like, you can't just do that. You got this to deal with, the title to deal with. And that probably also dives into a lot of like, once you've built a team, you got to delegate, because you can scale up to that next level. You can get to that, next deal, but you got to have the team that delegates, that handles all those things. Because if you drop the dealing with lenders and title, it's going to just be chaos for you.
Well, can I go back to this one point too?
Yeah.
I don't want, if you're newer in the business, to be discouraged. The key is to be somewhere where you get good training and strong agents that will mentor you. Good agents, they will mentor someone that you can ask questions to. It's okay not to know everything. I don't know everything, and I've been doing this a really long time. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't run at asking questions. So I just don't want you to be discouraged by that, but just know you need to put yourself in a place you're willing to learn, and you have people that you can get answers from.
Definitely. I mean, and look at the things that you're saying. I mean, you're not just the realtor, you're the leader. So all these things you're saying come from experience and come from also seeing others' mistakes, right?
Mhm.
And learning from those, not just saying, oh, this is what happened and it won't happen to me, but like, how can you tweak that so you don't do that mistake? Or just learning from others and yourself is why you are a leader, Kim. I mean, you got all the attributes. And it's funny when you say things like riparian rights, water rights, because in school and law school, we don't really cover that much in like the property law class. But then it all of a sudden becomes like a index card to study for the bar exam. But then they tell you there's like a 1% chance it'll be tested, and it's never really tested. But then, so I'm from Miami, right? Like riparian rights isn't really a thing in Miami for the most part, right? But then you come up here to Jacksonville and you got the St. John's, you got the Intercoastal, you have the lakes and everything that's happening over here through Yulee, all the rivers, and it's just a different dynamic, different world, and something you wanted to talk about because things affect property owners' rights, like riparian rights and all those different water rights are affected. Something you definitely wanted to talk about was RPAC, right? Because private property ownership rights are important and you are passionate about it. It motivates you. It's something that comes up. And I think those two things kind of tie in together because people could be fighting over boundary lines. People could be fighting over easements, adverse possession. I don't know, words that are just popping up that have a lot of meaning into them. There's just two words. But talk to us about RPAC. What is it? Why is it important to you? How can people get involved? It's something that was motivating for you.
Okay, so first of all, RPAC is the Realtor Political Action Committee. The R doesn't stand for Republican. It stands for Realtor. So we'll clarify that. And RPAC is the voice of property owners. Then your neighbors do not get together to have meetings about private property issues. You don't have groups of homeowners that are monitoring legislation that's going on in Tallahassee and Washington, D.C., and then mobilizing in their communities to determine how they're going to lobby their representative on what might be. Do you see where this is going? This is absurd. It doesn't happen. People don't go to their HOA meetings. People don't pay attention to what's going on in their county unless something really extreme happens, and then everybody, starts to look and goes, hey. But RPAC is the voice of the homeowner. That's what RPAC is. And so I'll give you one example. This was like 3 years ago. Could have been, I think, around 3, maybe 4. The homeowners associations, when the market turned, they're all kind of, in my opinion, were underbidding to win these neighborhoods for management. And then how did they make that up? They made that up on estoppel letters going out the door. So somebody sells their house, they have to get an estoppel letter. And all of a sudden, it was really worse in South Florida than it was here. But I mean, someone would be selling a $200,000 house and get a $1,500 estoppel letter. Okay. And they can't sell the house and close until they pay those people their $1,500 for that piece of paper. So the first year that RPAC went to Tallahassee to fight against that, we didn't have enough involvement from the real estate community, and the homeowners associations won. The second year, we went back to Tallahassee when they were in session, and we were able to win that. We were able to cap it. It's $300. They get to throw in a couple little rush fees, but it certainly was a far distance from $1,500. That's just one example. And this goes on all the time. And so the minimum requirement to participate is $20. That comes up in your January dues. You can pay it then. You can go to a chili cook-off or go to some RPAC event and, pay your $20 and you're contributing. But the story you get to tell is not only, am I a real estate professional? I just don't help people buy and sell houses. I help build communities. And one of the things the ways I do that is I financially contribute and participate in being a voice for homeowners in Tallahassee and Washington, D.C., defending your private property rights. So I'll stop there. I could go on, but
no,
anyway,
please.
$20, guys, put up your $20.
But please do, because, I've seen recently a situation where how property rights and things that HOAs or condo associations are doing affect the owners, right? I think I was seeing something recently where there was a condo association that just decided to build their beach path, but then they encroached on a homeowner's property. Now there's a lawsuit, and you know who's going to face the tab when the lawsuit settles and the special assessment comes in? All the condo owners.
Everybody who owns in there.
Exactly. They're going to face that special assessment. But that's just a small example. But you tend to see the impact of how things are moving in the markets with Jacksonville, the Northeast Florida, with the homeowner associations buying up and creating these declarations of homeowners associations. And that is something that you've been working on. That's important. And when things go back in session, and it's something people can be proactive in and participate in, Kim is the one to go to if that is something that impacts you or you see that happen. And a lot of people will either hear us and they'll gloss over it and go, oh yeah, it's RPAC. But then there will be the ones that it's relatable to because my mom, my dad, my sister all have gone through it. And so it makes them passionate. So like Kim said, if you are interested in that, you know where to find her, and she'll give her social handles right at the end.
No, I will. Yep,
yeah,
I will.
she will. And something else that was happening consumer wise, it's not even just property owner encroachment or things that are happening to these private property rights, but even just to simple consumers on a micro level is all of these solar panel issues that you wanted to talk about, and making sure homeowners, realtors informing, but also that the homeowners get the right information when it comes to the solar panels. It comes to some of the other things that you wanted to go over. Talk to us a little bit about that, because in Miami about 3 years ago, I was starting to hear about that, right? Like the whole, I don't know if I call it a scheme, but the whole plan was that the person owned the property. They wanted to get a better tax reduction or better rates on their electricity. But what they didn't know is that the solar panels, if they weren't paid, it added an assessment to the tax bill. It was something really crazy and wacky.
I know exactly what you're talking about. It's called PACE, and I participated along with Mike Sella, who's the chairman. He's one of our Clay County commissioners. He's chairman this year. And worked with them over the last 3 years. NEFAR was involved, RPAC was involved, and Clay County has eliminated PACE for residential because it was predatory. And I could go down that whole, that's another whole conversation. I don't know if you want to go down that road or not, but you know, here's the short answer. The short answer is people would get new windows, a new AC, a new roof, a new whatever they were doing. And it was financed over 20 years as a tax assessment on their property. And if they go to sell it, it's due all at once. But, you know, and so usually they didn't have that money, but they also didn't recognize the impacts of having an assessment happen like that on their taxes. So I'll give you an example. You buy a new construction, they assess you for unimproved property. You don't do anything about it as a consumer because you don't know, and you haven't been guided through how you can preemptively deal with this. But the tax bill comes and November, and it's unimproved and everybody's happy, and you keep making that little tax contribution to your escrow account, and the next year comes around and now you got a real tax bill with a house on it, and it's $3,000 instead of $900, and now they don't want just the $2,100 you're behind. They want that on top of collecting the right amount, and all of a sudden this person's for a year, you know, their mortgage goes up $500 a month. Well, the same thing happens with the assessment to pay for your roof, because it wasn't there. You got escrow, and then all of a sudden it comes around that first year. So that older couple who couldn't afford, you know, maybe to put the roof on, who financed it through that assessment, now their mortgage payment's going up, you know, $400, $500 a month because that assessment's showing up and they weren't escrowing for it and they're behind. So there's that. It's very predatory. There's a lot more to that. That was like the Reader's Digest version of PACE. But let me say this, realtors, one of your value propositions is to provide your sphere, your past customers, your farm area, important information. You be the source of important information that helps them and that protects them. And so the solar panel thing, I posted something on Facebook about it recently and got lots of great feedback. I'm probably going to do a video about it. They're going around to, you know, neighborhoods between 150 and 300,000. They're really targeting new construction neighborhoods right now. They're $30,000 or $40,000 for these solar panels. These people save $80 a month on their electric bill. They tell them their house is going to be worth 30, 40, 50,000 or more. It's going to go up exponentially. It's going to affect their value, blah, blah, blah. We had one recently where it wasn't a brand new house. It was an older home. The roof was already a little older. The panels had only been on there a year. They want to sell the house. The roof has to be replaced. They have to pay $6,000, three on one and three on the other, to take the panels off and put them back on in order to put a $12,000 roof on. So there's that. There's that. The situation where the house is not going to be worth $30,000 or $40,000 more. You tell me, if you put a pool in for 30, is it worth 30 more? You know, that's not necessarily how that works. And someone has to care about having the solar panels. I'm not anti-solar. I wish we could have all solar and, you know, whatever. I had no electric bill, but it's predatory. And these people don't understand what they're getting into. So communicate that with your consumers and be aware of the situation when you're listing a house, if they do have them, and what that looks like and what you're up against. And that's a whole separate lien.
Yeah, just because you added the generator that was 12,500 doesn't mean you just added 12,500.
Wow, that's a good one. That's a really good example.
Yeah, because that's what happened back with my parents' house. You know, in Miami, it was like hurricanes and you know, you never know what year it was coming. So we build the roll down. We did the roll down shutters, the ones where the slot, so literally you just press a button and it comes down, and that was money. And then we built the tanks in the back. But I guess now I'm more educated on it, just listening to you. I thought, oh, great, we're going to be able to sell it. So the house is this plus the cost of this. Is not always how it works. And the same thing with these solar panel issues. And it's amazing how you need to explain to these consumers, the sellers and homeowners, that just by doing this doesn't mean it's going to positively impact value.
Well, the buyer has to care about it. If you have a pool and somebody doesn't want a pool, they don't care about your pool. They don't want it, right? So that doesn't add value for that consumer. So that may be a little bit of an extreme example, but you have to find somebody who, that wants what you have and is willing to pay the premium on it that you were willing to pay. We're back to the triangle. And the little tiny group of people at the top, when you're targeting a group of people like that's a needle in a haystack.
Yeah. And it's something you just have to keep them informed about. And it's tough. It is really tough out there.
But for agents, this is an opportunity. Whether you learn about PACE or you learn about the solar panels or Homestead. I did a project with my agents in January 2020 where they went through their farm area and found people that had lived there 3 to 15 years back, 20 years back, whatever it was, that never homesteaded. Right? So that was an opportunity to say, hey, I saw a lot of real estate in this area. I was going through the records, and I noticed that you've been in your house for 5 years and you've never homesteaded. If you'd like more information on that, you can save X amount of dollars on your taxes, blah, blah, blah. I'd be happy to help you with something I do for my customers. And then remind your customers after they close, have a process, send them a letter 4 weeks after that says, hey, you should be getting your deed and title in the mail anytime now. If you don't get it in the next couple of weeks, let me know. But here's where you need to go to homestead your property. Don't wait. But be the source of valuable information that helps people. And they go, oh, wow, geez, I'm really glad that, Jill sent this to me. I totally forgot about that.
Homestead portability is a whole other thing.
Oh, I know.
I mean, you know how many people out there that have a primary residence, but never, you look on the property appraiser and there's no a homestead exemption, nothing. And it's like, nope, they've lived there for 30 years, seen it so many times.
So they lost out on the homestead and the portability, right? Do they lose out? Well, they've got the difference. Well, it is portability. That is part of the homestead, right? So you don't have portability if it's not a primary residence or you didn't homestead it, do you?
If it's your primary residence, you can homestead it.
Right, but if you don't homestead it,
I don't know if you can actually port it over.
Yeah, I don't think so if it wasn't homesteaded.
Yeah, I think so. I don't get into that stuff that much, but from what I think I understand from it is that you have to homestead it in order to then, if you sell your house, get the portability benefit later on. Because if you don't, then that's where that whole save your homes thing comes in. It
has to be homesteaded as a primary residence. Otherwise, it looks like you're trying to port from an investment property.
Right.
You can't just say, "Oops, I forgot."
Right. Yeah. And Kim, you would never believe how many times I see that. And the reason I see it is because I do so much probate. So in the probate world, what the definition of homestead is not portability in that sense. It's like in probate, it's did they live there? Did they reside there? They get the homestead creditor benefit, the deceased did. And then of the sellers, you ask them, is your property homesteaded? The question is, did you apply for the homestead tax exemption? Did you send it in to the tax collector? But in the world of probate, when you ask, is that the homestead? I get that question too. When I ask, was this their homestead? They'll say no, because the taxes has nothing to do with that. Did they live there? Did they reside there? And that gets us into the probate world, right? So talk to me a little bit about probate and something that I guess the headline is Realtors Stay in Your Lane. Right?
That's what I said. Realtors stay in your lane. I had a situation earlier this year in my office where an agent told the heirs, whoever, whatever, that they didn't have to do probate. And I'm like, you're an authority on that. So what ended up happening was the buyer had to extend their loan almost 45 days from the original closing date. And now they're ready to close after all this time. And then voila, the sellers can't close. because it has to go through probate. And had they handled it right up front and said, I tell my agent, that's one of those things where I'm like, stay in your lane. If there's been a death, I don't care. I don't care if I see the kid's name on the deed. I don't care. I'm like, you need to go talk to your probate attorney and make sure that we're clear. You got authority to sell the house before we list it. If there's anything that you need to do, don't own stuff that's not your lane.
Yeah, because there's so many nuances when you get into the probate world. And a quote that I've been telling a lot of people is, look, with probate real estate, it's just another real estate transaction with a puzzle.
Mhm.
And the puzzle, we have to figure out and, ask questions and find out what's the story with the family, the will, no will, how many heirs. But there are factors that play into efficiency and making sure everything is, we need to know, is this going to work? Is this not going to work? So I know where you're coming from, where it's like, you do the real estate, we'll figure out the probate, and you have to make sure that you're not wearing, I'm the accountant, I'm the lawyer, I'm the
Mhm.
I'm the handyman, every hat that you can wear. You just gotta, if you're the doctor, you're the doctor, you're the lawyer, you're the lawyer. Like, you need
Mhm.
to know where your role is, where your position is. And it's great advice for those out there. Although they do help, I have to say, with all the training and the webinars and, me speaking and doing
Yeah.
all these things, people have learned. I was pleasantly surprised. Somebody said, yeah, because if there's no will, I think it goes to this. I'm like, that's great. You're starting to learn what we're looking for, but at the same time, every situation is different. Everything plays a different role. So,
Well, I think we all need to have partners in our business that we rely on for our success. They rely on us for their success. People that we trust, that are experts at what they do. And we all need people like that.
right. You have to have people that are knowledgeable about the niche that they are in, because not everybody's going to do the luxury market. Not everybody's going to do the distressed properties. And if you think you're going to do everything, it's not going to end up that way that long. You're eventually going to say, yeah, this is what I do. This is how I do it. And get there and do all that. But Kim, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking to me with all of this stuff. I mean, there's so many things we could have dived deeper in, and hopefully one day we can. Maybe when I get that full-blown studio set up in my law firm, it's going to be a while, but I love to have you back on deeper pocket issues that come up in the real estate world. If there's anybody that you want to reach out to you, or how you let people know to get a hold of you, let us know where they can find you, Facebook wise, social media wise, and reach out to you at Kim Knapp, or where are those social handles?
Well, Kim Knapp Jax on Instagram is one place. I'm one Kim Knapp on Facebook. So there's 10,000 Kim Knapps in the world. So I was a little slow on the draw, clearly. So if you do FB, you can just put FB. You don't have to type in Facebook. You can do fb.com/one Kim Knapp. And then Kim Knapp Jax, like for Insta. And you don't want to follow me on Twitter. Or maybe you do. I don't know.
Depends on who it
That's
is.
my free space, because most people aren't on Twitter. So that's my free space.
Right. Well, Kim, again, thank you so much for being on. You are a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this. You are a leader. And I even talking to you now, like, I've seen you at the REBar, we've interacted like a few times, but now, talking to you and seeing the side of you it's just, you're a leader. You're inspiring to those realtors that are out there that need to learn, like, the nuts and the bolts. Like, this is how it's going to be, not, the fluffy world. Like, this is the real world kind of perspective. And you provide that to those
Well,
realtors
thank
out
you.
there.
Well, thank you for the service you're doing to the real estate community. I appreciate it. And if I could say one thing, my favorite quote, go the extra mile, because it's not very crowded up there.
There you go. There's another card for her. Thank you, Kim. We will connect soon. I can't wait. And I'll just tell you, I can't wait for REBar again. I will be right there. I can't wait for the trade show again. I'll be right there. If there's even 3 or 4 more new trade shows, I'm all in. So I can't wait to see you there again and interact with everybody in the real estate world.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, everybody, if you want more content like this, make sure you check out the Al Nicoletti YouTube channel. I have content on probate, quiet title, partitions, all different things, including the Kim Knapp podcast that I'm going to have on today, and all the other podcasts that I've done last year, this year. Tons of knowledge, tons of information, different people, and it will be just all over the place. And you can also find me on Facebook at Al Nicoletti, where I will post all the content, the micro content, the quote cards, and you can see all of this information. So until next time, I will see you next time on the Al Nicoletti Show. Take care.